Across the rugged Indian territory rides a tall young man on a mission of mercy, his medical bag strapped on one hip, his six-shooter on the other. This is Dr. Six Gun. The National Broadcasting Company brings you another episode in the exciting adventure series, Dr. Six Gun. Gray Matson, M.D., was the gun-toting frontier doctor who roamed the length and breadth of the old Indian territory. Friend and physician to white men and Indian alike, the symbol of justice and mercy in the lawless West of the 1870s, this legendary figure was known to all as Dr. Six Gun.
The territory is a place where men look up to the skies and call out to heaven in many different ways. We have seen the wagons of the Mormons rolling west, Dunkards, Mennonites, the Catholic padres of the Spanish missions to the south and the west, and in the Indian country the worship of the Manitou, the sun, and the spirits of the dead goes on as it has for 1,000 years before the coming of the white man. Sometimes these different peoples, overwhelmed with their separate truths, have been somewhat impatient to each other. Of course, I am a neutral. I am the brother of whoever made needles or pins or a yard of ribbon. And who am I? Pablo, the gypsy peddler. And this is my friend Midnight. He is a raven, but a philosopher.
All men are brothers.
You see, a humanist.
Words, too.
And a universalist. Of course, in the territory, a place of violent death and violent life, many men face eternity with a curse and a defiant pistol shot into the quiet sky. Such a man was Harvey Fraser. He was standing at the end of the bar at the Bull Run Saloon one night, drinking quietly. I was sitting at the table with Doc Six Gun when O'Shea, proprietor of the Bull Run, came up to the table.
Evening, Doc. Everything all right? O'Shea, Piney's cooking is improving week by week. This steak is much tenderer than the one I had last Monday.
It ain't Piney that's improving, Doc. It's the side of beef both them steaks come off of. It's aging and mellowing.
Too bad the same can be said for your whiskey.
I don't get the turnover in beef I get in whiskey. It ain't got time to age. Sometimes it ain't got the time to quit sloshing around in the barrel from the wagon ride over from the distillers in Chisholm City.
Well, you keep right on serving it, O'Shea. I'm figuring on all the cases of whiskey poisoning and delirium tremens to support me in my old age.
You can't fool me, Doc. You keep talking temperance every time you get the chance. I don't mind. Every man to his own brand of foolishness. Which reminds me, I wish you could talk a little temperance to Harvey Fraser over there.
Was that the tall cowpoke at the end of the bar?
Yeah, he comes in here every week and starts in on a bottle. He gets quieter and quieter and meaner until... Well, last week he would have shot Luke Garrett clean through the head. Only his hand wasn't steady enough and he missed.
Why do you serve him?
His money's as good as the next man's. Besides, he'd get liquored up somewheres else and then come back here looking for me.
What do you want me to do?
I was wondering, isn't there something, a little powder I could kind of sneak into his drink so's he'd just pass out peaceful like?
Don't look at me.
Oh, now, Doc, couldn't you see your way clear to give
O'Shea,
me...
you've got your professional ethics and I've got mine. You serve him your liquor and I keep my medicine for sick folks, okay?
I might have figured you'd say that, Doc. Well, maybe I can kind of tag him behind the ear with my pistol butt when he ain't looking. It ain't as neat, but it'll keep the ethical situation a little more comfortable all around.
About a week after that, Doc and I rode out to the west of town. Doc was riding a circuit of calls, and I had my pack.
Pablo, what do you know about this Colonel Turo?
Oh, nothing. Why?
Well, he's my first call. He must have bought the Jessamine place down by the river. Sent a note in with a rider. Signed it Arthur Turo, Colonel.
Oh, is he with the army post at Fort Kane?
No, I know all the officers there. There hasn't been a transfer. I expect it's a Southerner still carrying his Confederate rank. Wonder what he'd say if I introduced myself using my rank, Private First Class Matson. I must try that sometime.
was right. The military title was left over from the war. Colonel Turo was a tall, graying man, soft-spoken, but with a glint of steel showing through.
You think she'll be all right then, Doctor?
I see no reason why not. She's a healthy woman.
You can say it, Doctor. She's young, and I'm not.
Well, anyway, she'll have no trouble giving birth, as far as I can see. We figured she's in her 5th month.
Well, I'd like to thank you, sir, for traveling this far from town. I would come in myself, but I've been so occupied during the week with putting the ranch to rights. And since I do not travel on Saturday, and I hesitate to intrude on your Sunday...
Oh, I'm afraid my Sunday's far from sacred, Colonel. Babies, broken legs, and gunshot wounds have a habit of occurring on the Lord's Day.
Sunday?
Yes, of course. Oh, you mentioned Saturday, didn't you? I suppose you're Seventh-day Adventist.
No, I'm afraid my attachment to Saturday as the Sabbath antedates the Adventists by some thousands of years.
I beg your pardon, Colonel.
I'm sorry to confuse you, Doctor. I am, as a matter of fact, of Hebrew persuasion.
Oh.
Does that surprise you, Doctor?
Yes, I suppose it does. Frankly, I never met many... Well, what's the right term, Colonel?
You have your choice of many, sir. The most desirable ones being Hebrew, Israelite, Jew. It doesn't matter.
Well, out here in the territory, there aren't many of you folks. I recall one doctor when I was a student in Boston, but he was a German mostly. I was just surprised. I thought you were a Southerner.
I am.
Oh, I mean...
Pray don't concern yourself, Doctor. I know quite well what you mean. As a matter of fact, my family has been in Louisiana and a part of Georgia since Revolutionary times. We may have perhaps been something of an anomaly since we ran our plantation on free labor.
That is unusual.
Perhaps. You see, Doctor, if you know your Bible, you remember that the children of Israel were slaves in the land of Egypt.
Of course, led to freedom by Moses.
Well, we have a holiday each year to celebrate that liberation. And I suspect my father became increasingly uncomfortable each year, thanking God for the deliverance of his ancestors from bondage, while he held the ownership papers of some hundreds or more slaves, several of whom served the dishes of bitter herbs that are supposed to remind us of the bitter days of slavery.
I can see that he might.
My father, being not only a righteous man, but a good planter as well, freed the slaves and set a reasonable price, taking it out of wages over a good many years. And by the time I came into the property, all our people were free and working for wages. It made us somewhat unpopular in the county.
But you fought for the South?
Yes, it was my country. Pray do not point out the inconsistency. I'm well aware of it. And now, Doctor, I'd like to invite you to join us this evening. It is the eve of the new year.
The new year?
Our calendar is somewhat ancient, Doctor, and has tended to drag a little. But take my word for it, though, it is the new year.
And so Doc and I were invited to spend this alien holiday with Colonel Turo and his young wife. We had apple dipped in honey, which we were told signified the wish for a sweet and prosperous new year. We did not see Colonel Turo again until next week. He came into the bull run on Friday morning and found Doc eating his breakfast.
Good morning, Doctor. I'm pleased to see you again.
Well, Colonel Turo, what brings you to town?
A business, I'm afraid. I've been arranging to import some blooded stock to replace the Longhorns.
Won't you join me for breakfast?
Well, thank you.
O'Shea,
Huh? Oh, what is it, Doc?
this is Colonel Turo. He'd like some breakfast.
Well, sure thing. What'll it be? Steak? Little pie? Hash?
I think just a boiled egg and black coffee, if you will.
Oh, that ain't enough breakfast for a fly, hardly.
It'll do nicely, I assure you.
Well, all right, but a boiled egg ain't hardly a challenge to Piney.
Colonel, I don't know if I thanked you enough when I was out to your place. I just hope I wasn't intruding on your observances.
Oh, no, not at all, sir. I was about to ask a favor of you.
Sure, what is it?
Well, it's rather complicated. You see, I won't get my reply from St. Louis about the cattle until afternoon stage gets in from Chisholm City. Now, at that time, I would be unable to reach my home by nightfall.
It's a clear trail, though. Besides, it's the full of the moon. You shouldn't have any trouble.
I'm afraid I haven't made my problem clear. At sundown this evening, the Sabbath starts.
I see.
Now, I'm afraid I've compromised my inheritance a number of times. Probably if that were all, I would ride home, and Well, in a modern world, the old ways sometimes are not followed too strictly. But this evening is the start of, the Hebrew word would not mean anything to you, but it's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement.
That's an important day.
It's most solemn of our year, Doctor. It's the day when all the sins of mankind are brought forward for judgment, when we repent and mourn and consider our conscience carefully. It's a day that weighs most heavily on us. For example, I told you of my father freeing his slaves. Well, it was on the Passover that the idea occurred to him. But it was on the Day of Atonement when he examined his heart and set them free.
I see. Then you don't want to be traveling on that day.
That's right. And more, inasmuch as there is no congregation to hold any services in these parts, I would like to spend the day alone in meditation. Now, at the lodging house, I have been sharing my room with a stockman from Texas. Well, he's a cheerful sort, but he's not exactly conducive to meditation. I wondered if there might be a room in your house.
Why, of course, Colonel. It'd be a pleasure.
I won't be any trouble. It's our custom to fast on this day, so even that difficulty need not trouble you.
Be no trouble, Colonel. I'll be proud to have you as my guest on a day that means a lot to you.
Contrary to the impression I may have given you, sir, I am not really a particularly pious man. But this day, I feel somehow it is a mark of respect to my father and my people. I suppose you've met Southerners overcome with mourning for their fallen country.
Yes, I have.
Well, sir, on this day, we mourn our country that fell almost 2,000 years ago.
Colonel Turo sat with Doc through the afternoon, waiting for his message on the afternoon stage. He passed the time telling Doc of the customs of his people, of the South before Fort Sumter, and trading war experiences. It was about an hour before sundown when O'Shea came over to Doc's table.
Doc, excuse me, Colonel.
What is it, O'Shea?
It's Harvey Fraser.
He hasn't been in here today, has he?
Yeah, he was in before you came in. He's been fired off the Barrel A, and he was in a mean mood. I gave him one drink, then I told him I wasn't going to serve him no more.
I thought that was contrary to your professional...
Now, look, I'm not joshing, Doc. I told him I don't mind a raucous drunk or even a fighting drunk, but I'm plain scared to death of the quiet, mean kind. I told him to get out. I had my gun on the bar so he'd know I wasn't funning. And he got it.
Then what's the problem?
Well, I told you he'd get his liquor somewhere else. Picked up a quarter mule down at the livery stable, and he's been sucking on it all afternoon.
Oh, you think he's coming back here after you?
I know darn well he is. Charlie seen him coming up the street. He should have given me them pills or something. There he is outside the swinging doors.
Now, wait. Put those guns up, O'Shea. He may not be shooting.
Well, anyways, he finished his bottle.
Where is he? Where is that sniveling, psalm-singing barkeep that won't serve a man liquor?
Now, take it easy, Harvey.
Why,
Now, Harvey, you're just talking plain foolish.
Well, you ain't got a gun on me now, O'Shea. As a matter of fact, I got one on you.
Now, Harvey.
Drop your gun belt to the floor. Go on.
Let me put him up on the bar. I don't want to get sawdust in the barrel.
Now, wait a minute, Fraser.
Don't you horn in none, Doc. I'm running this here drive. Put them guns down, O'Shea. All right, now you gonna serve me?
Ain't you had enough with a quarter mule?
I said, are you gonna serve me?
Sure, Harvey. What's your pleasure?
A whiskey. Make it full measure. And I'm gonna let it go at that, O'Shea. Because I ain't mad at you. I'm looking for some low, sneaking red polecat that took my job.
Where does that man work, Doctor?
The Barrel A, I think.
Oh, you know what that crawling hound done to me? He fixed it so's I got fired. The boss says I don't need so many hands now, so Harvey, here's your time.
I don't get it. What's this southerner got to do with it?
Maybe I can explain. I suppose the owner of the Barrel A decided he didn't need as many men after he sold half his range acreage to a newcomer.
That's right. Who are you?
Arthur Turo. I bought the land from the Barrel A.
Why...
Look out.
You're wearing a gun. Make your move.
I want to talk to you.
Make your move or I'll gun you down right now.
All right.
Get his gun, O'Shea. My hand. Doc, my hand. He didn't hit you, Fraser. He got your gun.
I was aiming for his hand.
That's some shooting anyways. You've got some move from leather, Colonel.
In the old days, it was a fashion in my country among the gentry to duel for slights to their honor. In my case, I was often slighted, and I seldom lost a duel.
Doc, I can't feel my fingers.
Just soak them in cold water. They'll be all right. Maybe you better soak your head, too.
I'll take care of that, Doc. I got the dish pail right here. O'Shea. You wanted him to sober up, didn't you, Doc?
You've done this to me, Mr. Colonel, whatever you are. You lost me my job and hurt my hand. All right, now you listen. You and this pot-bellied barkeep are plenty brave when you got my gun. Well, I think you're a no-good, cowardly hound. We don't want you or anybody like you in the territory. Coming in and pushing other people out.
I thought we settled this.
No, we didn't. Now you listen. I'll be waiting for you in the street tomorrow morning. Cold sober, so my hand's steady. If you get any guts, you be there. And we'll settle it then. O'Shea, give me my gun.
Give it to him.
Here you are, Harvey. Now, get out.
I'll be waiting for you tomorrow, Colonel.
Well, Doctor, if you don't mind as it approaches sundown, I think I'd like to retire.
Sure, Colonel. Come on, I'll show you the way.
We all walked over to Doc's. There was no mention of Harvey Fraser and his challenge. When we got to the house, Colonel Turo opened the carpet bag and took out a prayer book and a long white shawl with a black stripe at each end and fringes.
This was my father's prayer shawl, and so the legend goes, his father's before him. Doctor, I'll just ask you to hold my gun. It's not proper for the day, you know. The custom is to follow the biblical injunction to do no work, which is held to mean to carry no money and, of course, no weapons. Actually, Doctor, being alone and not a learned man, I can only make a respectful gesture toward the service. But I do what I can.
And so, throughout the evening, Colonel Turo sat by himself, wrapped in the old prayer shawl, and read from the prayer books, murmuring the strange language softly to himself. In the morning, Doc had breakfast at the Bull Run, and the Colonel stayed in his room. I think Doc was much impressed. The unfamiliar ritual was somehow awesome.
It's real strange. Here you learn in Bible school all about these people. Chances are you never get to really know any. Not in this part of the country.
You could have fooled me. I would have thought the Colonel was an American.
O'Shea, when did your father come over from Ireland?
1848, when the potatoes give out. Why?
The Colonel had kin way back that signed the Declaration of Independence.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean, Doc. What did the Colonel say about Harvey Fraser?
Nothing.
Well, Harvey rode into town at sunup. He's been waiting around ever since to catch the Colonel on the street.
O'Shea, you mean he seriously intends...
He sure does. He's telling anybody who'll listen that the Colonel is a yellow dog who's going to sulk in his room all day because he's scared.
But I told you, it's this very important religious time for the Colonel.
That don't make no never mind to Harvey. He'll be telling everybody how he made the Colonel back down.
But the Colonel can't fight or even carry a gun today. It's against his religion.
I don't know if Harvey will wait till tomorrow. He's really got blood in his eye. He comes in here for a drink maybe every 2 hours, just so he won't get too much and unsteady his gun hand. Looks to me like the Colonel is over a barrel.
Doc went back to the house, and about noon, the Colonel got up and started for the door.
Wait a minute, Colonel. Where are you going?
For a walk.
Wait. I thought... I mean, is that allowed?
Oh, it's considered proper to take a short walk on the holy day.
But you know, Colonel, it's a pretty wild town.
I'm aware of that, sir.
Maybe Maybe because of the day, it'd be better to stay in.
I don't take your meaning, sir.
Well, Colonel, to be honest, Harvey Fraser is out there waiting for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, he said he would be, didn't he?
Oh, you can't go out
Why not?
because he'll gun you down.
Doctor, in my old home in our country, if a man challenged your courage and impugned your honor, there was only one thing to do. You meet him.
Oh, then you're going to take your gun.
No. Not today, Doctor.
But you can't just go out there and walk into Harvey Fraser's bullets without your gun, without fighting back.
Not today, Doctor. My honor has nothing to do with respect for my father's. Not in this case. I cannot compromise one for the other. Now, if you'll excuse me, Doctor, I'll take my short walk.
Colonel, you've still got the prayer shawl on.
Yes, I trust the townspeople won't find it too startling. An interesting custom. You know, often a man has the same shawl from boyhood, and when he dies, it becomes his shroud. Well, good morning, Doctor, and peace to you.
And so, down the street of Frenchman's Ford walked Colonel Turo, his flat-crowned hat set square on his head, and around his shoulders the yellowing silk of a prayer shawl shipping in the light breeze. He walked slowly and steadily, as if it were in respect to the day, as if the measured steps along the board sidewalk were but an aid to meditation and prayer. Doc came charging out of the house after him and crossed diagonally to the bull rope.
Oh, say, listen. The Colonel's out taking a walk. Where's the sheriff?
No, Doc.
Listen, if Sheriff Hanson doesn't do something, we've got to find Fraser and...
You found him, Doc.
What?
Didn't see me at the end of the bar? Well, I'm glad to know the Colonel's out walking. I'll give him a chance to enjoy the fresh air. Then I'll go out and meet him.
He hasn't got his guns.
Don't hand me that, Doc. Man who shoots like that ain't without his guns. O'Shea, a little drink. A short one, just for sociability, but not enough to shake your hand.
Harvey, let the Colonel alone. This is an important day for him.
Yeah, sure is, Doc. Get that drink, O'Shea. Let me see how far the old goat got down the street. Huh? Coming back this way. All right, O'Shea. My drink.
Here you are.
Well, I'm right sorry to run off like this, but I got an appointment with a polecat for a little walk down the street. Adios, Doc.
There was nothing too unusual in the scene. A dozen times in the last year, two men have stood in the dust of the street at Frenchman's Ford. A dozen times, the loungers in front of the livery stable have dived for cover, and the barber has run out to put up his shutters. Harvey Fraser stood in the street, his legs planted wide apart, his Stetson jammed back on his head, his hand hanging limp on the level with his gun butt. We've seen that many times in the territory. And then Harvey started forward, walking slowly to meet the colonel, who stepped down the middle of the street now, as if he were on parade with his regiment.
All right, you yellow dog. Make your move.
Can't he see the Colonel hasn't got his gun?
I don't think he cares.
I'm going to stop him.
I wouldn't, Doc. Harvey'd gun you down, and in these parts he'd get off scot-free. Jury don't hold with one fella interfering with another man's fight.
It's murder.
There ain't nothing to do but wait, Doc. That's all.
Closer they came together on the street, and we could see that the colonel seemed to be talking to himself in that strange tongue of so many years ago.
Draw. Go ahead, you old wall-eyed steer. Draw. I give you your chance. Don't come no closer. I'm going to gun you down. Draw. All right, you think I won't. What's the matter with my eyes? There. I drew my gun. Now make your move. If you take one step more, I'm going...
He's down. Come on, O'Shea. He just fell down like he'd been poleaxed. I got his gun, Doc.
What happened, Doctor? I'd already said the prayer for the dead for myself.
Shall I rope him, Doc?
I don't think you'll have to, O'Shea. When he comes to, he's going to be violently sick to his stomach.
Is he ill? I'm too old a man to believe that the Lord intervened in Frenchman's Ford the way he did in Babylon.
If it was the Lord, Colonel, he done it through Doc.
Never mind, O'Shea.
Well, he ought to know. Doc took my advice finally. He fixed Harvey's last drink while he was looking out the door. And say, by the way, what did you put in it, Doc?
I'd rather not say. But he isn't going to be too comfortable for a few days.
I should thank you, Doctor.
Colonel, I should not have let you go out.
No, it was my decision. And now, if you will allow me, Doctor, I should get back to my prayers. I'm afraid I have a grave sin for which to atone. I allowed it to profane a holy day with violence.
A sin. How do you figure that, Colonel?
False pride, Doctor. Pride, so that a thing as shallow as honor could be allowed to interrupt the holy day.
You have been listening to Dr. Six Gun, brought to you each week at this time by the National Broadcasting Company. Doc Six Gun is played by Carl Weber and Pablo by William Griffiths. Today's script was written by Ernest Kenoy. Heard in the cast were William Keane as O'Shea, Bill Adams as Colonel Turo, and Les Damon as Harvey Fraser.
Dr. Six Gun, starring Carl Weber as the frontier doctor, with William Griffiths as Pablo, the wandering gypsy, has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.